Hey, today I'm so excited that you're here. Obviously, you're here because, like it said in the title, we are going to do an easy Valentine's Day card. This is going to be a great card for a friend, for your partner, for your kid, maybe your grandkid, or maybe you want to actually do this as a project with your kid or your grandkids. I got you. Super easy. You should be able to finish this within 10 to 15 minutes. And if you like it, and it comes out well, maybe you could do multiples and, do a school project or send it to a bunch of your gals for Valentine's Day. Either way, what I'm going to do today is we're going to work on a card similar to this. We're going to actually do, I don't know if it'll stay in focus or not, but this is the pink version that I did. But I'm going to do today one that is blues and greens and purples. So just kind of to give you a little bit of a variety in color scheme. But what I wanted to do today is teach you skills, right? But rather than just do kind of like boring drills and like, here's how you do this and here's how you do that, I thought better to have a takeaway, right? So something that you could actually use, something practical. So I came up with this card for you. We're going to be learning skills today like wet into wet, wet on dry. We're going to talk a little bit about water control because at some point I will probably have too much water and I'll have to fix it. And we'll also do glazing, which is where you layer colors on top of one another. And we'll talk a little bit about composition. And then we'll also do a little bit of multimedia because I'm going to be bringing in some pens. I love my ink work. So I got a fun little, I think it's silver that I'm doing on this other card. So silver pen that I'm going to be using. So let's get started. Yay! All right. So I showed you this card that I created. And then this is what kind of the color scheme that we're going to be doing today. So a little bit more of the blues, greens, and purples. I like this because it's a little more manly. If you're sending it to a partner or, someone that likes this color scheme. I actually really love this color scheme for myself. So let's walk through supplies. I have 3 brushes that I'm going to be using today. I have a flat brush. You can use this big one or you can use one that is a little bit smaller as well. I have this shorter one. So anything, as long as it's a flat brush, it has sort of a flat edge like that. And then I have one big brush and one kind of small brush. So Papa brush, Mama brush, I guess. I can't tell. But basically a big one, a small one. Fancy names. All right. I'm also going to be using a Micron, I think it's a 02. So I've got a black pen, ink pen. And then for fun, little sparkle, we have a silver pen as well. The paper that we're going to be using, you want to use a good watercolor paper. The one that I am using today is Canson. Got this at Michael's. And, of course I use my 40 off coupon. And what you're going to be looking for in a good watercolor paper is something that's 140 pounds, 300 grams or GSMs, I think. And what I did is I cut this in half, cut it in half, cut it in half again. So I ended up with little sheets. So you could divide the big one up if you're doing multiples and maybe for your kids' school or, like I said, for friends. You can break that up with some tape. And paints today, I'm going to be using my Paul Rubens set because I love this set so much. The colors that I'm going to be using is this blue and a little bit of these 2 greens and some yellow in there as well, just to brighten it up. And then when it comes to the purple, this purple is really dark and this is kind of a magenta, but it's a little bit on its own. It's not the color that I was looking for. I was going to say it's funky, but it's just different. So I'm going to do a little bit of these 2 guys as well. I'll be mixing them in here and you'll see that here in just a bit. Of course, I have my water. I have my dirty water and my clean water. And then this is just a fun little mini palette. I love having a place where I can put my brushes so they don't run away because otherwise they tend to run all over the table. So have that, have my spray bottle and some paper towels. Let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is mix up my colors. So like I said, I'm going to be using this. It doesn't even look blue on the screen, or even in person, but I know that this is my favorite blue in this palette. I can mix it there, or I'm actually going to mix because I'm going to be using a bit of it over here on my palette. This is just a dinner plate, or a serving plate rather. So I'm just going to pull some of that over here and wash that out. Get my paper. So I've got my dirty one and then I have the clean there. And then for the clean, I'm going to grab some let me grab my yellow first because I feel like it's better to go with your lighter colors that won't like necessarily dirty up your other ones. So I've got a little bit of yellow in there. Clean that off first. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm in Nevada, so outside of Las Vegas, and honestly, it's so dry. These paints dry super quickly. So I'm going to bring some of that in there and just kind of mix up a puddle. What you want is a nice little puddle. Oh, I should have made more room for the purple, but we will work with it. Actually, no, I'm going to show you how easy this is. Boop. All right, here we go. Grabbing some yellow. We're going to get a little bit closer, and it's okay that there's some green on my brush because that's where I'm headed anyway. And I just picked up 2 of those greens kind of simultaneously. They're all going to mix and play anyway, so it doesn't matter. So there is my green. Get that green off my brush. Really make sure it's clean. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my purple. And again, I'm just going to grab these 2 kind of together. I'm not going to go necessarily back and forth. Some people are really funny about mixing colors in the wells. I'm not so picky at all. Grab a little bit more of that magenta and a little bit of water. What I'm wanting to do is having a nice base of colors to start with so that I am not having to remix, because what you want is to make sure that you have enough at the beginning, because sometimes when you go back and remix, what happens is you get the ratios wrong and it's a little bit off and a little bit different. So hopefully you can still see, and you can see most of the colors there. All right, I'm gonna close that up for now. All right. So the first thing I'm gonna do, and looking at our little example here, I'm going to make just little squares and rectangles with my colors. So the first one that I'm gonna start with, and I'm gonna do different values too. If you look at this, is really light, this is kind of medium, and this is dark. What you want is a good variety of values in your piece because it just gives it some visual interest. So what I'll do is grab the full strength of the blue first, and I'm going to just put it here, and I'm literally just gonna draw a line there. Actually, that wasn't even very full strength. Give a little bit more there. We'll make this one a little bit brighter. Oh, it almost came out the same. And then what I'm going to do is kind of dip it in the water so that it's becoming a lighter blue. And on this one, I'm going to just give it some variety. I'll go this direction. When you watercolor, you will find that the paints dry much lighter than when you first lay them down. Okay, so that's that. Next, I'm going to pick up my green that I've mixed here. And I'm going to just lay it here, and I'm intentionally going to have it touch, hoping that they'll play a little bit. Okay, they didn't want to so much. The reason why they didn't bleed, oh, it's bleeding a little bit. The reason why it didn't bleed is because it has to, as I said in my other video, that watercolor pigment will go wherever the water is. So wherever the water is where the pigment will flow. And I'm literally just dragging, just kind of doing a line. There you can see it had a little bit more water in the blue, so it kind of bleeds. I think that's a fun look. And there, intentionally, I left those a little bit separate. So I'm just making little squares. And I'm gonna wash and make sure it's nice and clean. I'm going to pick up some of my purple. And what I'm doing here, I made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Typically in artistic things, if you go with odd numbers, our brains really like odd numbers for some reason. So there's that. And I'm literally just drawing lines. That's what's fun about this broad brush. Okay. And I'm sort of looking for empty areas. I feel like that's a little bit empty. And I'm going to let those 2 maybe touch a little bit. Okay, so that is the first layer. How easy was that? Super cool, right? The next thing, oh, yay, I told you that at some point that I have an opportunity, not a problem, to show you about water control. So there was a big puddle. I don't know if you can tell with the lighting or not, but this made a pool right here. So what I'm gonna try and do is pull some of that pigment back into the middle of the square. It's totally fine. It's a look, it's a vibe. You can let it stay there if you want. But I want a little bit more of an even look. This one has a lot of water as well. So another technique you can do is you can just dry off your brush, and it's like a little vacuum, kind of little Hoover vacuum, like you keep pulling the water out, and it just works like a beautiful little vacuum cleaner right there. And what that'll do is it'll avoid what's called hard edges. That is kind of a cool look. I'm gonna leave that. I actually really like that. It's gonna dry as a hard edge, but I'm not gonna worry about it because I actually like it. So one of the things that I really want to encourage on this channel is like happy accidents. I forget, Bob Ross, right? If you find that, like, oh shoot, it did a thing, let it go. That's part of why I really love watercolor, because it teaches you to not feel like you have to control everything. There's a certain amount of control of water and whatnot. But yeah, just play and experiment. So before we dry this, I want to point out I have an odd number of green. So I have 3, I have 5 blues, and then I have 3 purples. So in terms of composition, and they're all kind of evenly mixed. You saw that I sort of mixed around. This is a good composition. So what I'm going to do is, as one of my friends, one of my creative friends, not my friend, but someone that I follow says, you can let it dry or you can make it dry. So we're going to make it dry. All right. Get my hairdryer, and I am on the edit. I will make this so it's not so loud. All right. So what I'm doing now is I'm feeling it to see, does it feel warm? If it feels cool to the touch, that means it's still wet and has some moisture in there. And when you're trying to do wet on, so this was wet on dry because the paper is dry. We're going to do some more wet on dry. This, where it mixed, is wet on wet, and you'll see that a bit too. The next step that we are going to do is we're going to create some hearts. So same, I was going to say the same order, but I think I'm going to start with the green, just because think I want to put a purple heart there. So I'm going to grab some of my purple, and I'm literally just going to draw a heart and follow your heart, pun intended. And I'm just moving that paint around. What you want is, once you've drawn the heart, you want to fill it in rather quickly so that it doesn't look like such a hard edge. Just because it's a little bit nicer looking. So there's that. I'm actually going to try to move a little more quickly and have a little bit more water on my next pass. So I'm gonna fill that in. It doesn't look so streaky this time. Okay, so there's our first heart. Yay! I'm gonna do 3 hearts. The middle one, because I have blue and green here, I think I'm gonna opt for the blue so that it shows up a little bit more on that green square there. So I'm just talking through my color choices so that you have a sense of what we're doing here. And I'm going to also, speaking about values, I want this to be a little bit darker, so I'm gonna grab a little bit more pigment because I have too much water there. See how these are both a little bit light? I am going to kind of start here, and I'm gonna come down about here. So I'm going to quickly, don't overthink it. So I've got a medium-sized purple heart. Oh, purple heart. And then I have a little bit bigger size. There's a funky thing on there that I will grab off in a minute. Oh, and so this is what's fun. One of the things about watercolor paint is that it is a transparent medium. And all that means is that you can see through it. So there's a thing called glazing that's really fun, where you layer colors on top of other colors. And I love, love, love that that green is showing through. All right. All right, and I'm at the stage of like almost fussing with it too much, so I'm gonna leave it alone, because one of the things that I always say in my art classes is you gotta know when to say when. All right, so with the green then, I'm going to pick that up and make our third heart at the bottom here. And again, I chose that because you have already the purple and the blue, so I'm looking for kind of some balance. And I'm gonna place this guy a little bit more in the white open space, so that I'm filling up a little bit of my card. And there is that. Clean that guy off. And that is, so that is still wet. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and dry these guys so that I can continue layering, okay? See, this was already rolling off the table. Get back in your little home there. Stay with your friends. Okay. One of the things I want to point out is that I have a cool button on my hairdryer. So what I'm doing is I'm putting it on the heat, and then once it feels like it's dry, then I go ahead and put it on the cool to just cool it off and kind of finalize it. And then again, I touch it with the back of my hand or my hand. I've even sometimes put it on my face and got ink on my face, but if you touch it with the back of your hand and it still feels cool, then you know you have a little bit more drying to go. Okay, so this is the base of the card. We're smoking. All right, the next step is going to be adding little hearts with our micron pen. So what I'm doing here is I'm just looking for sort of empty spots. I'm trying also to visually connect some of these squares. So I'll put one there, put one here, and I think I'll come down and put one here. So I'm not looking to necessarily put them in like all by themselves. So it's okay if some of them are just completely out in the open, but I think it's nice when they sort of touch. I'm also composition-wise, so I've got kind of some medium squares. Now I'm going to try and do a few little small hearts. So there's a small one, and I'm also going to do one here. I don't want to fill it up so much with the black because I still have the silver to go. The other thing that I want to point out is that, this out of the way, right now everything is very contained, and visually our eye likes to have things sort of feel like it's expansive. So I'm actually going to come out here and pretend that some of them came off the side of the page. Same thing here. Okay, and I'm gonna do the same thing up here. And what I'm gonna do is just visually, even though I'm not drawing on my desk, I'm going to kind of pretend that it goes around and then just kind of come back here. And same thing. Sort of lost the line there. Cool. And then I'm going to pick maybe two squares where it contained them inside the color. So I really like this purple one here. So to give him sort of a little place to land. And then I'm feeling like this, maybe this other little purple heart here. Okay, now don't overdo it with the black. Sometimes you can even step back, kind of hold it, away from yourself, because when it's too close, sometimes literally you get too close to your project, you could sort of lose sight. The next one I'm going to do is this silver marker, and I think this is Uniball. And I'm just going to, again, look for some variety in terms of sizes and placement. So looking again, I'm going to start, I think, here. And I love the shine of a little marker. Because this is dark, I really want to put one here because the silver is light, so it sort of gives it a nice difference. Same thing with this dark. I'm just trying to think of placement. I have one here, one here. I want to put it here, but I really like how dark it is there, so that's kind of my decision-making process there. So I'll put it there, and now we need to put some over here. And I've got a lot going on here and a little bit of a space here, so I'm going to put one here to sort of tie some of those together. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember that odd things, our brains love that. So I think I'm gonna put one here. So before I keep going, I'm gonna just look and see how I feel about the composition and how it's looking. I don't know if you can tell it on screen, but this little thing bugs me. If I wasn't going to tear the bottom, I would probably cover that up with another little heart. And that's a way that when you make mistakes, quote unquote, there are opportunities to embellish, okay? So one of the things I love to do on cards is a torn edge. So I'm actually gonna tear this edge. So I'm not gonna worry about that little place. I don't know what that even is. I think it was some of the green ink. So I'm just going to tear the bottom edge and tear it away from myself, or towards myself rather. I think that's super fun. The next thing I'm going to do is grab some colored paper. I really like this blue. So I'm going to cut some paper that will fit around this and just sort of give it a nice little frame. Look what a difference that is. Isn't that lovely? So what I'm going to do is give it a little bit of a quarter inch edge. So I'm just going to cut it right about there. These just make it really nice. The way to use these is you just literally like draw a line of glue. And then you can place it here. On this one, I did actually tear the pink as well, but on this one, I'm gonna leave it just as is. And then what you'll wanna do, because you can either cut a card from the cardstock, that is the watercolor paper, but I am notoriously cheap. I actually buy cards again from pre-made cards, or you can cut cardstock from, so you can either cut them or you can get pre-made cards from like Michael's, and they always have like a 40 off, or I think at Christmas time I stock up on these because they go half off, something like that. So regardless, you just get a card that's, you know, a nice white cardstock, and we're going to do the same thing. I don't go all the way around the edge because, again, this stuff is not terribly cheap. It's not expensive, but as you saw, I use a lot of it, so I run out quickly. So I'm just going to center that right there. And then you could, another thing I did on one of my cards is I wrote a little I love you. I did a card also today. I wrote like I love you and the 3 hearts there. So you could write I love you if you want, or you can just leave it nice like that and write a little greeting on the inside. That was fast, guys. How cute is that, right? Let me know in the comments, please, if you make this card. I'd love to know. And yeah, let me know what you think. Let me know questions that you have as you are going through this. If you're like, hey, Chris, you know, this didn't work out, or, you know, why did my whatever? Let me know in the comments. Please like this video. It costs you nothing. It really helps my algorithm. I'm trying to grow my channel. So if you could like it, subscribe, and especially turn on the notifications, because I am not regular yet in terms of my upload schedule. So I will get more regular as we go along, but especially if you can share and subscribe, that would help me a lot. So, all right, love you guys. Take care. Have a great day. Bye.